Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. This is the Double D Show. My name is Scott Morganroth with the Motor City Madmouth, along with Damon Knight from my neck of the woods back in Metro Detroit. How you doing, Damon?
Doing pretty good, Scoop. How you guys doing?
I'm doing all right, and alongside of us, our regular co-host, David Levin. What's up, Big D?
Hey, guys. How y'all doing tonight?
We're doing good. The Double D Show, folks. Good. Damon and David, and with DA and DA, okay, get to do some exchanging on the Sports Exchange here on the WSAN Network, and glad to have you both on tonight. So, David, go ahead and take it away.
Well, first of all, it's great to be back on with both of you guys tonight. I know that this is something Scott has been wanting to do for a while, to have two guys with a name to start with D, and he's probably pretty excited right now. Let's start off a little bit I want to talk to you a little bit off the cuff a little bit, Damon. You were telling us before we went on air that you're laying bricks for the summer. You got to tell me a little bit more about that. How does that tie in with your aspiring sports career?
Well, I'm paying for school. I'm going to go in school for broadcasting and get my bachelor's degree, and that's just going to be a stepping stone towards being a sports announcer. So, with this job, it'll get me closer to my dreams, and I can't wait. I'm going to work hard every single day until I get there, and it's going to be glorious when it pays off.
What school are you thinking about? Exciting. What school are you thinking about attending? That's okay, David.
OCC.
Oh, do they have a 4-year program now?
I believe so. I haven't really done research on it, but once I do, I'll figure it out. If not, I'll transfer credits to a school of that it's affordable to save money.
Gotcha. Okay, David, go ahead.
Yes, yeah.
I don't know many people that will say that, hey, I was laying bricks before I was going to college, and that's how I'm paying for my education. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
I know there are stories of athletes who, do other things before they become athletes, but you probably have a unique experience you're going to be able to tell for a while. So you guys want to talk a little baseball? You want to talk a little basketball? Where do you want to start, guys?
All right, well, you know what? Why don't we go ahead and talk about Spencer Torkelson, the future infielder for the Tigers. We don't know if he's going to be a third baseman, first baseman, but either way, another Scott Boras client is going to the Detroit Tigers.
And I was thinking the same thing, that Boras is tied everywhere, it seems. I've seen Spencer Torkel play for the last 2 years, and I cover the Miami Marlins. A pure athlete who can hit for power and hit for average, and he's pretty decent defensively. How shocked were you when they made the announcement and they said that he was going to play third base as opposed to playing first base in college?
Damon?
Oh,
Damon?
I thought he was talking to you. Sorry.
No.
I was shocked. They said that he was a first baseman, and then Manfred came on and said, oh, he's a third baseman. And I was like, wasn't he a first? But it makes sense, and it seems like he has really good skills all around the field. He's a well-rounded player. He can hit with power. He has soft hands, elite plate discipline, and it's just a plus that he can play another position besides his normal. And, it's another weapon that the Tigers can utilize, in their lineup. You can move Cabrera from first to third or DH or what have you, so it's good to have a player like that in your system.
So much has been made about Torkelson. The hype is real, and I don't use that very often about a player. But he is as close to a 4 or 5 tool star that the Tigers will have in their farm system. How soon do you think it would be before he actually sees the major leagues? Is there a certain timetable that you see that he'll be there, maybe in 2 years? Do you see him before that? What's your overall impression?
Overall impression, I believe 2 years, like you were just saying. And, if it takes longer, that's going to be expected. Just because he's young, he's only 20 years old, so it's going to take some time. I could see him get a couple of bats within this year, maybe next year, just to tease his presence in the league, and he'll start to blossom, I think. It's just a matter of time.
Is he the type of cornerstone player you can build around? And I say that only because so much is made about the draft now. Before free agency, hot stove, those were where you acquired your core players. Now you're seeing the draft become a more important fixture amongst all 30 teams. What does this, is he a face of the franchise type of guy?
In my opinion, yes. And I'll go back to when he was 18 years old. That was a driving force to his progress as a player. He was a bit depressed about not being drafted at 18, and he put in the work and the dedication going forward to get where he is right now. And so that's an attitude that you want in a leader, and that's what he represents. And I believe, yes, he can be that person and that player for the Tigers going forward.
Yeah, there's no question there that he definitely had a chip on his shoulder. And, of course, he comes from a good baseball program at Arizona State University baseball, so they've had a great tradition for sure. So, But I can definitely see where he would have a chip on his shoulder. Continue, David.
I'm wondering, and Scott, I want you to give your opinion as well. You and I have made a big deal about these smaller market teams. And when I say smaller market, they're not spending a lot of money. But Detroit, Kansas City, Miami, San Diego, you can throw in 2 or 3 other teams there. They keep on bringing in cornerstone and building block pieces. How long do you think it's going to be before you finally see the fruits of their labor? Well, you can only add so many players until it finally either works or it doesn't.
Well, here's the deal, David. Well, Spencer Torkelson, you don't want him in the big leagues this year. Yeah, we all have to take accountability that there's service time involved. Why would you burn up a guy's service time during a shortened season if there is one to begin with? You don't. Does he get it? Depending on where the Tigers' rebuilding process is. If they feel he's ready to go in 21, you do it. But I still think he's probably 2 years away. I think Damon may be on to something. But again, if the Tigers feel like, you know what, he's a cornerstone and your other young pitchers and some of the other players in their system are ready, they're still figuring a 2, 3, 4 year rebuild. Whether Ron Gardenhire's there to see the end of it, it's anybody's guess.
Right. I noticed, too, that when we were watching the draft unfold, and by the way, this is the first time that I've really watched all 5 rounds, and I think it's probably because it was just all 5 rounds. The college athlete is getting more attention. That the maturity level and the ability to hit and the arm that's a little bit stronger, those things come into play. Before we were drafting players, with the first 10 picks that were, 17, 18 years old, went behind the ears. It's a changed atmosphere, don't you guys think?
No doubt about it. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Damon.
It's a lot of these players, a lot of pressure, I'd say, more, with how much they're getting paid attention to, definitely.
I think part of it, David, though, is attributed to the fact that are you willing to take a gamble on a high school player, 18, or do you feel like the college coaching is a whole lot better, where you might as well play 2-3 years? And I think what you saw this year with the draft, that a lot more collegiate players coming out, could be a sign of more things to come, that indeed the college draft can be as comparable to more so the NFL and NBA. I don't know about hockey as much from a draft standpoint.
Okay. And I tend to agree, too. And I think that this year, especially because it was 5 rounds, that everybody shifted their focus. They wanted to take something that they thought was more of a sure thing than take a project that may take 4 or 5 years to develop. Remember, there are still players that drafted 2 or 3 years ago. They're still just at high A level in the minors. That's quite a gamble. So this class, especially for all 30 teams, they all had to hit home runs with these picks.
Well, here's the thing, David and Damon. Okay, the MLB draft to me was more important than it has been in years past. When you draft 40-some players, some decide not to come out, some don't. The chance of you signing a lot of your premium players with those 5 picks, I think, is a lot better rather than somebody who may or may not, and then they'll come back. You know what I'm saying? So the MLB draft has a lot more value. So if you're able to draft 5 players, and these guys are in the top 5, it's better that they all sign. And I think that could probably be an interesting trend to look forward to in the future. Go ahead, Damon.
Yes, definitely. Shifting focus and picking players that are going to develop faster than, project players, like David was saying. And I think it's great for baseball. You can draft those kids later on, when they are a couple years, from being ready fully. So, yeah, it benefits the league in a way.
I also like the fact that because of the lack of draft picks, you're seeing these teams announce, well, we've signed off for 5, 6 of our players. They're already under contract. The Marlins did that, in 2 days. I know that there were other teams that have been working to make sure that all of their players are under contract. So if they do move forward, and if there is any chance of them playing in a fall league or something like that, it's available to them.
That's true. That's a good point. I never thought about that, playing in the fall league. And obviously, one that stands out would be the Arizona Fall League. If they're
right.
as good as
they're also talking about putting together a Florida Fall League that has not been developed yet, so that more players have a chance to play minor league ball this year. Because remember, there's not going to be any minor league baseball.
I didn't know that, but glad you brought it up. Florida Fall League.
Yeah,
that's interesting. All right,
I did my homework, Scott.
Well, I know you always do. I never doubt you at all. So with that said, okay, now we've talked about Torkelson. Let's go on the MLB players. They 60 games. They rejected that proposal by a 33-5 vote. What's the latest on that, David?
Well, first of all, the side of this, and I was reading on Twitter that Jeff, the son of ESPN, finally just said, my head hurts from all this. Those of us that follow this every single day, our fingers hurt from constantly typing about it. I got to tell you. So basically, it's like this, guys. They're going to play a 60-game season. They've been, point and counterpoint, check and countercheck. Everything has been rejected. It's now put back in the commissioner's hands. He's going to put together a 60-game season. He's going to tell them when and where, and they're going to have to show up. And that's just the way it is. It is maybe the most greedy back and forth that I'm 48 years old. I remember the 80s player strike, the 81 player strike. This is something that is going to damage baseball for a long, long time.
No question.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Yeah, no question about it, David. It will. I think all the greed, the bantering back and forth, when you're talking about tons of people unemployed during the pandemic, nobody's getting any sympathy on either side.
No.
They aren't.
And from what I don't know if they're going to keep the same parameters that they had, but this is a 60-game season, designated hitter. They agreed to the prorated salary based on what they agreed to in March. There's going to be it was a 30-man active roster, a 20-man taxi squad, which means they'll get to use minor league players. But nothing, and Damon, by the way, Scott and I have talked about this quite a bit, so I'll throw it at you first. Nothing matters. The records don't matter. No, somebody could conceivably hit 400. There could be more than one player hit 400 for 60 games. It tarnishes everything. What are your thoughts on that?
I believe that. Yeah, it does tarnish, and it's not fair because it's a shortened season, and players back then didn't have to go through that, where they had a shortened season and they beefed up their numbers, but they had to play multiple games, and it increases, and what have you. So they shouldn't really count. It's like steroids in baseball, where Barry Bonds breaks Hank Aaron's home run record, but he really cheated for that record, and it shouldn't count. So that's how I look at it.
Am I really going to care that a pitcher is 7-0 for the season and wins an ERA title? I don't think so.
No.
Am I going to care that, and Scott knows that baseball is the biggest thing for me. I cover football. I'm more worried about, I know Miguel Rojas, who's the shortstop for the Marlins. He hits 400, and that's a record. What if he hits 415 for the year? There has to be an asterisk by it. It is really screwed up because baseball is the one sport where every single statistic matters.
Yes.
Not in
ERA, pitching. Yep.
Not in 2020. It won't.
Heck no.
Yeah.
And don't get me started on the designated hitter because Scott knows I am totally opposed to it.
Well, I am too. I grew up with it in Detroit, obviously.
Sorry.
No, you don't want to take away from the purity. The designated hitters this year, I'll be curious to see what they agree upon in the future down the road. I'd like to go ahead and see no designated hitter in the National League moving forward, as it always has been. But, we can't even get past a 60-game schedule, let alone anything that both sides can't agree on. Rob Manfred can't agree on anything. Neither can Tony Clark. And what do you have? Both sides aren't going to send each other Christmas cards, that's for sure. And, do you think...
Pretty much.
Yeah. So, David, do you think that Rob Manfred will be under fire and that the owners will replace him?
Oh, I think Damon touched on this a little bit, too, that, first of all, Manfred has handled this so poorly. And I'm not sure that anybody else other than Bud Selig would have handled this a hell of a lot better. Let's put it like that. I don't know what this does to baseball's legacy. Damon, you're pretty tuned into what's going on. How much tarnish is there, and how soon do the fans forgive?
It's pretty bad. Trevor Bauer is one of the most opinionated players in the league right now, and he's at it with them. Like he wants him out of baseball completely. I don't know if Manfred can salvage his reputation in a shortened time. But who knows, man? He could pull off something, and everybody will change their opinion about him. But that's like a shot in the dark. I don't think it's going to happen.
Scott, help me out here for a minute because I don't understand the incomplete process. I know that when Bud Selig took over as acting commissioner and then he was voted in, he remained there for multiple contracts and whatnot. Is there a way to remove Manfred from his position, or is this you come up for a re-election type of thing? I don't know the process.
Well, I mean, I believe the owners went ahead and extended Manfred's deal is what they did. So I would assume that they would probably go ahead and keep him through the end of the term. Now, if the owners get upset, I mean, for sure there's a way they can remove him if they wanted to. They didn't think nothing about getting rid of Faye Vincent, did they?
I was going to go back to that. That's kind of where I was leading.
Right.
But this definitely benefits the owners because of the time frame and what it is. And I know that everybody's still bleeding money, but the owners are the ones that come out smelling, like roses in this deal.
I mean, you really can't blame Rob Manfred for COVID-19. I mean, you really can't.
No, but you can blame him for the crap that's gone on back and forth for the last 4 weeks.
I don't know, can you?
I think you can blame him, and there's culpability everywhere.
Right.
That's my favorite term.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
in my opinion, he lacks integrity. He lacks putting his foot down and saying, "This is how it's going to be. Take it or leave it." Just straightforward. Yep.
Well, you know what, Damon? I'll give you that. To take it or leave it, this is what we're going to do, whether you like it or not. But again, that word called grievance is all part of it, and nobody wants to be dealt with $1 billion grievance either. So, you have to.
I would have liked to have seen Tom Glavine negotiate this instead of Tony Clark, to be honest with you.
Really?
Remember, Glavine was so out. Well, hear me out on this one, and I'm throwing a curveball at you, Scott.
That's okay.
Remember, Tom Glavine was so outspoken in '94, and it pissed a lot of us off. It pissed a lot of players off. But I don't know if you had read the story, that he was interviewed a couple of weeks ago about what's going on now, and he said, "I wish I hadn't been so vocal. I wish I hadn't been on the front line. I wish I had there to help, support his cause and the players' cause." With that maturity, comes experience, and maybe he does a better job in negotiating this for the players this time around. So that's why I'm throwing it out there.
Well, it's okay. It's a good point. You're talking about another time where you had baseball labor, a very contentious point. Now let's go back to the future to 2020.
Exactly.
But the one thing Tom Glavine didn't have to deal with was COVID-19. So with that said, okay, let's take it to another level. Well, we can talk about culpability and blame. Are we really going to have a 2020 season if COVID-19, the numbers start to get worse? It's one to think that we're going to have it. And I know there's probably some loose ends you have to square up with the health issues that the players have to look at, whether they can make it. But let's just take all of that out of the equation. I'm going to let you lead off, Damon. All right? Will COVID-19 prevent there from being any baseball in 2020? And will baseball get a mulligan? There's a two-part question. Let's talk about 2020, Damon, whether that will kill the baseball season.
It's going to be tough for sure because, you have to invest a lot of emotional energy into the season just to get into it. And if it stops because of a virus, and it's going to be very hard to just pick up back up again and then reinvest and then do it again all over. It's going to burn somebody out. So it's going to be very tough. And then 2020-2021 season, it's going to be really exciting. Probably the best season of baseball ever if it gets to a point where people can come back and be under healthier environments in the stands.
So, David, how do you want to answer those two questions I threw out there?
Okay. First of all, I'm concerned. Scott and I have had this discussion too. I'm concerned what happens when baseball starts and players get it. We have two facilities, the Toronto Blue Jays and the Philadelphia Phillies, I think actually the San Francisco Giants out west, where they had to close their training facilities because they had employees or players or people affiliated with the organizations who have tested positive. This is kind of going to fall under the same thing or a bubble. There has to be a plan of action if X, Y, and Z happens. I don't know what happens when they're in the middle of the season, they're 20 games in, and, star pitcher X is diagnosed with COVID-19. And because he's diagnosed with COVID-19, well, then 50 players are to be tested again. And they have to close down the facility. And it's one of the major league parks. It's not, a training facility. This could be either incredible, can go follow two ways. It's going to do very well where they're able to self-contain everything like they want to, or this is going to be one of the biggest disasters in Major League history.
Thanks for making my point. I appreciate it.
I try.
No, you did. No, it's true. I mean, all right, so we got all this agreement, all this baseball talk, whatever you're talking about, but meanwhile, COVID-19 puts a damper in it. And then,
exactly.
And then what about the probability of players rejecting, not wanting to do it because of medical issues to begin with?
That's what I want to talk about too. And I was going to use it as a second part of the platform. There are players that are going to play NBA basketball that are leery, and we'll talk about that too. But players who are playing NBA basketball who are leery of getting on a court because they don't know what's going to happen. There are baseball players who are going to be asked to be separated from their families for a while, and I know we've gone back and forth about that what happens if, Billy Bob Joe gets it. I'm definitely afraid that at some point we're going to get halfway through the halfway season and we're going to have to stop again. And that's going to damage everything it's going to damage the sport more than anything.
Oh, I agree. Nothing more to say on my end. I agree. COVID-19 goes ahead and disrupts the season, then what do you got? To me, it is an absolute waste of time. You're going to have players that don't want to go because they're afraid of COVID-19, and rightfully so. They are away from their families, rightfully so. So I think the dropout level will be much higher than most people think, and don't be surprised.
I agree.
We'll transition on to our next subject, okay? That's the NBA bubble in Orlando, COVID-19. People are nervous, and the cases are rising in here in the state of Florida. What do you think, David? Does the NBA actually restart?
I'm going to say yes, because of all the sports that we've talked about, they're the ones that put the plan together, that have stuck to their blueprint. And I agree that if there is this bubble you're going to have to play under, and they're going to have to follow all those rules, and everything's going to have to be, they're going to be tested every day or whatever that is. The arenas themselves are going to have to be immaculate. But it's a guideline that sets the tone for other sports. And we talked about that, remember, in the pre-show. I don't know if you heard while you were getting set up. The NBA is setting the what do you want to call it? They're the trendsetter right now. And if it works for them, and then it works for the NHL, and Major League Baseball can follow some of that script, and then the NFL go ahead and start its season with its precautions and whatnot, then we can get back to some semblance of normalcy. If the bubble doesn't work, and there are players who have expressed they're still worried about it, Lord knows we don't want players being sick, and we don't want organizations having to cease operation for a while they take care of this. If it works, then it's okay. If not, then sports itself for the 2020 season needs to be shut down completely, and that includes the NFL.
All right, Damon, what do you think about the NBA bubble?
I think it's going to be crazy, with everything that's going on right now. Them trying to organize everything separated, their health care possible. They're scheduled to come back July 31st, and then the NBA Finals will conclude on October 12th at the latest.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be very hard to just keep everything copacetic for players and for everybody that is associated around arenas, camera people, announcers, everything like that.
Damon, do you think that because the NBA took the reins, they were the first ones to shut down, they're the first ones to start back up as far as a team sport? I know we got golf, we got NASCAR, we got some other things going on, which is wonderful, and they're showing they can play in adverse conditions. Do you think the NBA then becomes the blueprint for all the teams to follow, or is this something where guidelines are just going to change as, it moves from summer to fall to winter, changing seasons change the tapestry of sports?
I think it's going to impact every other sport in a positive way. It's definitely going to be a blueprint, where I was talking about with Stanford with integrity. Adam Silver shows integrity, shows a willingness to do whatever it takes and put his foot down when he needs to. And so I think he can take a page out of his book and playbook and utilize that towards baseball, somebody else from hockey, and so on and so forth. So it's the NBA is definitely a bar center, I think.
Hey, Scott?
Yeah.
I want to let you guys know, because I'm on the internet while I'm talking to you guys.
Yeah.
According to Bob Nightingale of USA Today, spring training for baseball will begin July 1 with a 60-game regular season starting the weekend of July 24th to 26th. Play ball.
Okay.
It's back.
Okay. Well, it's good to know.
Nightingale is one of the foremost authorities on this. So if he says it, I believe it.
All right. Well, I'll take him for his word, too. So, all right. Well,
yeah.
Again, he may say it, but COVID-19 might have other things to say about it. So
until it's there. Until it's there, we don't,
Yeah, I mean, I respect Bob Nightingale. He's been at, of course, you had an opportunity to be on with Tony DeMarco, too, didn't you? So.
Yes. Hey, if Tony told me the sky was green, I believe it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. But, yeah, I don't know. I think, I'm with you. I know. But COVID-19, I think, is going to be the deciding factor, no matter what agreements we think we have in place. That's what I really, truly believe. So, but do you have any other opinions on this, Damon?
I think we covered everything. I really, to be honest with you, I cannot wait until sports starts up back again.
Well, we have one thing. We have one thing left on the agenda. And that's Dak Prescott signing his $31.4 million one-year tender, and it is signed. It has until July 15th for a long-term deal. All right, why don't you go ahead and voice your opinion, Damon, and then we'll have David wrap it up. Go ahead.
Yes. So, the Dallas Cowboys, they signed Andy Dalton, and now they signed Dak Prescott. There's definitely going to be a quarterback controversy right there because both are starters mentality quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. And Prescott is seeking a $40 million deal, and they have until July 15th to discuss a long-term deal. I don't think Prescott deserves this deal, in my opinion, just looking at his numbers. I think they can find better value, and they got better value behind him. So I think it's a bad deal, in my opinion.
All right, David, go ahead, and then we'll wrap up the broadcast.
Okay. First of all, I still want to see Andy Dalton in Jacksonville. I've got to say that. I have to throw that out there, Scott. I don't think Dak Prescott's a $31 million quarterback. He played this very well. And granted, he's a winner, and he's mobile, and he has a great arm, and he's better than anybody thought he would be because he was such a late draft pick. But in my mind, he's going to have to perform at the highest level every single game, every single snap, because if not, Jerry Jones is just the type of guy who's going to roast his butt to the radio and the media. Look what I did. I spent all this money on this. It sets up either for a great, successful story where he takes the Cowboys to the playoffs and beat the Super Bowl, or it falls in line with some of the stuff that he's done, the Dallas Cowboys have done before, where failure gets more headlines and Jerry gets to sound off a little bit more.
Well, from what I've heard, okay, that if you give Dak Prescott the amount of money, let's just say this, that they sign him to another franchise tender at $38 million next year, then you have Amari Cooper kicking in for another $20 million because his number is going to go. You got 25% of your cap space allocated to two players. That to me, right. Who do you fill around these guys? You got Ezekiel Elliott making a decent dime. So, yeah, I think Andy Dalton, a lot of teams would have liked to have had him, but let's not kid yourself. The Dallas Cowboys leveraged Dalton in case, the price is wrong for Dak Prescott, without a doubt. So I think Jerry Jones messed this whole thing up. He should have renegotiated way earlier than this until the number got way out of control. The Lions made a bad move when they didn't lock in Ndamukong Suh, and then they got themselves in trouble with the franchise tender until he was out of their price range as well.
Right.
So there's precedence when you're talking about these kind of things with Ndamukong Suh, and I think the Lions defense never been the same since Ndamukong Suh. But regardless, I think the Cowboys, to me, they better get this deal worked out. They really better. And I don't know what Dak Prescott thinks he's going to get during COVID-19 and with revenues going down, and who knows what the salary cap's going to be next year, let alone the fact that we have this year because of all the revenues lost. I do know that the NFL has that cushion, however, where they have their TV contract, unlike a lot of other sports where it's as lucrative as it is. So, all right, guys, we had a really good broadcast tonight. With that said, Damon, why don't you go ahead and lead off and let people know how they get a hold of you?
So my Twitter handle is @Damon with a capital D, capital K, and 1993. You can also follow me on Facebook @Damon Knight. My picture is me in front of a microphone. It's black and white. Also, you can follow me on Instagram as well, and other platforms such as Spotify, with the Sports Exchange, and other media platforms.
Okay, David, go ahead.
First of all, tonight this really good show, guys. I really appreciate sharing the microphone with you. I work for Fansided.com. I can be found at MarlinManiac.com. I can also be found at BlackandTeal.com. On Twitter, you can find me at DM719907. And I am the joint host of Underneath Stitches here with Scott on a regular basis.
All right, and as for us, well, you can find us on Twitter @Tribune South, Facebook South Florida Tribune. Like our page, you'll get the updates. Instagram, South Florida Tribune. YouTube channel, South Florida Tribune. And actually, Candy and I have had an opportunity to do some Serene Sunday videos, so we'll be able to talk about a lot of things outside of sports as well. The website for content, both from our media distribution partners as well as our columnists such as Damon Knight. And our broadcasts, you can find those at www.southfloridatribune.com. And our email address is southfloridatribune@gmail.com. LinkedIn, you can find me, Scott Morganroth, on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me. I'll be more than happy to get back to you. You are listening to the Sports Exchange on WSAN Network. And you can find the broadcast also on southfloridatribune.com or wherever you get your podcast. So, on behalf of Damon Knight and David Levin, my name is Scott Morganroth of Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you on another edition of the Sports Exchange. Good night, everybody. Hope you had a good broadcast tonight. I certainly enjoyed it. So, all righty.
Yes, thank you. Yep. Have a good night, Scoop.
Yep, good night.
Thanks.